from his hair to build our country, making it better for the world to see. Oh, we're making connections, moving ahead, improving the products and giving you the best. Tourism today. Moving ahead. Tourism every day.
Hello and welcome to Tourism Today, your passport to the world of hospitality. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm. Coming up in the show tonight, small airline and charter operators up in arms over new civil aviation fees, but officials say they are necessary for continued safety and growth. Major changes ahead for the Lynden Pindling International Airport as the expansion program kicks into high gear. 34 years later, the People2People program is still going strong thanks to its dedicated volunteers. And in tonight's Making It in Tourism profile, Bahamians and visitors getting into the swing of things thanks to a tennis pro turned instructor. All that and more on the other side of the break, so stay with us. Tourism Today will be right back after these messages.
Be there to welcome the 88 beauties from around the world when they arrive on our spectacular shores. Plan to attend all the Miss Universe events, including the pageant finals on August 23rd. Tickets can be purchased from box offices located at the Sheraton Nassau Beach Resort and the Atlantis Paradise Island, or you can call us at 363-6601. Tickets are also available online at www.tourismtoday.com.
Welcome back. The proposed enforcement of the Civil Aviation Act's landing, parking, tie-down, and air navigation fees and charges for small airlines and charter operators is causing quite a stir in the local airline industry. Although the fees were enacted back in 2005, this delayed enforcement is causing small operators to cry foul. However, officials say it's high time that all stakeholders involved took responsibility for the safety, upkeep, and upgrade of the services and products that they use. And that is precisely what these fees are about.
It was agreed, it was just never put into effect, and nobody can provide any reasons as to why it was never put into effect. But having said that, what is very important is that we sit with those persons who are the owners of the companies affected and make sure that there's a full and frank discussion about what is happening, because there is no doubt whatsoever that some of the headlines that you've seen have been gross exaggerations of the fact.
That is the position of Minister of Tourism and Aviation, the Honorable Vincent Vanderpool Wallace, and the Department of Civil Aviation, which is responsible for the enforcement of the fee structure. Civil Aviation Director Patrick Roll explains that the fee system now being used is antiquated and in dire need of an upgrade.
When I came into office, all of the billings were still, in most cases, in pound, shilling, and pence. And so I recently started an exercise looking at some models as to how did the other states change their structures.
Mr. Roll explains that when compared to other Caribbean states, the Bahamas is unique in that it is an archipelago of islands with multiple airports.
The Bahamas government happened to operate 28 airports, 14 which are port of entries, and there's a total of 56 airports in the Bahamas that basically the Bahamas government is taking care of. Well, that has to change. If our goal for the Bahamas is to develop the Bahamas and make all of the islands as attractive as the Nassaus and the Abacos and the Naughty Lutra, there has to be some great infrastructural changes.
We need to have some sources of revenue to maintain the facilities we have, and to rely on a system that for a long period of time there were either no charges or undercharges, and when the acts and regulations and schedules very clearly say that there should be these charges.
The idea behind the fees is to keep the Bahamas' aviation environment safe at a minimum cost and without the government bearing 100% of the burden.
There's no way government can continue to do this at the cost we're doing it at, where you have a professional who's paying $13 for a license, but he's flying maybe a $4 million airplane.
Says Sky Bahamas CEO Captain Randy Butler, One of the reasons the fees were not implemented back in 2005 was because the government at that time did not want to pass any taxes to the people.
That means that starting September 10th, we have to increase our fees in an already troubled time in the industry, when fuel in the last couple of weeks have been increased by 31 cents a gallon.
If the success of an individual's business is based on me charging him, instead of $13, $200 for a license, the business was not well run in the first place. But the intent of the government is in no way to put any operator out of business.
Mr. Butler and other small airline operators are not convinced. In fact, they believe that the government is deliberately trying to put them out of business.
I remember an airline called Trinity, where Trinity was about to go and offer excellent service and really help the tourist industry. The government decided through Bahamas Air to bring in, I think it was Airbus at that time, drop the fees dirt low and put them out of business. When we look at the predatory practices of Bahamas Air, I am suspected that the government, that is what they're doing now. What is it doing to the small businesses? I have 74 people employed. Other companies have, one of the other companies like Western have more, probably 100. All right. So if you put those, you're putting Bahamians again out of job.
I don't know anybody who would not prefer to have in place in the Bahamas private companies providing the same kind of services throughout, and the government doesn't provide any of it. That is precisely what anybody would prefer. They would not rather the Treasury go and subsidize it, but we do know that there are certain routes that would not be served because they would never be profitable for any particular carrier, and so the government has to provide those.
While he acknowledges that there should be some charge, Mr. Butler argues that the charges are too high. He also takes issue with the fee structure.
You're talking about going from charging now $0 to put an airplane 19-seater now to $7,000 on certificate. Changes now where, and there's no accountability in this. There's no transparency. Who's going to guard where the government is going to charge you, overbill you? They say now they're going to go do a determination maintenance. They're charging $150 an hour. Well, who determines how much time it's going to require?
On the other hand, Mr. Roll contends that the Bahamian fee structure is more beneficial to operators than those found in other countries, where fees are set up for multiple payments.
If you wanted to make an application for an airline, they charge $125 for that. If you wanted to see the board, if you were called to the board for a hearing, there was an application fee of $125, which we don't charge for. If there was an approval, then you pay for the approval. And so there was a continuing amount of costing that the Bahamas still have not included in their fees.
Apart from the fees themselves, operators also took issue with the lack of consultation.
And there was supposed to have been a consultation, and according to the regulation, it should have been a gradual increase. We have not had any consultation with the government regarding these fees.
It looks like somebody woke up just recently and decided to increase prices. Well, the consultations were back then, the conversations were back then, and they're just being implemented 4 years later.
Mr. Butler is questioning whether these fare increases will result in improvements to the industry.
There are other things they need to look at, that cost recovery, where people are getting a service that they'll be glad to pay for, all right? Right now, there's no way that we're seeing any, we don't even understand what they're saying to improve the quality of air transportation. What are they going to do?
Tourism officials say improvements are on the way, and the fees are needed to put in place the civil aviation regime that is going to cause for growth and expansion.
A large part of the reason why we have not grown beyond Nassau and Grand Bahama Island, Nassau Paradise Island and Grand Bahama Island, has really been an absence of quality air transportation throughout the country, and we are trying very hard to put that in place. We also need to have the resources to make sure we have the capacity to put it in place.
My goal here, and my stated goal here, is to ensure that as we increase the fees, we also put in this element of you're servicing the public. These are your partners.
One of the Civil Aviation Department's goals is to get the country's 4 major airports to operate 24 hours a day by the end of 2009, beginning of 2010. The bottom line, he says, is the ministry is making an effort to open up our islands, but this can only be done at a cost.
The government cannot afford to develop all of the islands with all of the demands, with all the infrastructure that needs to be in place at 1952 prices.
When we come back, a groundbreaking ceremony marks the beginning of significant